Alright, physics video, response video to Puro, or his dog would probably be a better idea. His dog's probably smarter than him. But, you know, it's this whole conversation of lensing came up. Okay, now, we've already done exactly this conversation before, like a year ago or more. And it just, I mean, I'm thinking of the metaphors I used back then. I'm saying, how could we be going over the same material again? It's just, this is, I mean, it's just such ironic conversation. A study in how to be wrong as possible and not know it, which is the definition of Puro. Except he knows some of it. I mean, in the sense that you know, he's presented really garbage evidence. He makes claims that are preposterous exaggerations of the truth, like I somehow deny all the evidence, or I do this, or, you know, unreferenced, unsourced accusations. It's just such, it's so bad. I mean, it's outrageously bad science that he's defending here. And so what can you say? 9 thumbs up, no thumbs down. And it's so fucking wrong. It's not just a little bit wrong, it's preposterously wrong. And so yeah, I mean, this is compiling the evidence. I mean, like I said, I never started this making the accusation that physics is just a religion, but it is just a religion, clearly. These are just people defending something they know very little about, and it's just because it's their tradition, it's what their mommy told them, and they just can't grow out of it. You know, and they'll be obstinate and belligerent in their defense of it, as if it's just such obvious fact, when it's exactly the opposite. The obvious facts are in complete contradiction to what they're stating is the truth. Alright, so just little things. I suppose it's worth just pointing out little things. Alright, so the sun. Okay. Now, to do this lensing thing, so there's 80 meter per second gravity on the surface of the sun. The Earth is 10. Okay, so this, you know, it's 78, really, 77, something like that. Alright, so by the rules of physics, the actual rules, not the ones they believe in, but the actual law of physics, okay, really proven stuff. Okay, so there's the radius of the sun. Okay, so for every radius you move away from the sun, alright, that 80 gets cut, you know, divided by 4. So it's 20 here. So here it's only 20. Now that's only twice as strong as the gravity on the Earth. So just one radius from the sun. Now if you saw the solar eclipse pictures, you saw that the corona, you know, just leaks around the whole thing at almost a radius, at least a radius around the sun. Probably bigger in some places. But anyway, so you're already down to 20. And you go one more radius. I didn't draw this quite proportional, but that would be about where one diameter would be. At one diameter, you're at 5 feet. I mean 5 feet. 5 meters per second, yeah. So you're half the Earth's gravity, just one diameter away. One diameter away from the surface of the sun, and you're already at half the Earth's gravity. Half of the Earth's gravity. That's how fast gravity degrades. Just a diameter. So these people are arguing that galaxies, in which the suns are monstrously huge distances away from each other. I mean, not just solar diameters, but thousands, maybe 1,000,000 diameters away from each other. So there's 1,000,000 times more empty space than there are solar masses. And they think that, as some kind of thing, creates huge gravity out here, or out here. No, it has no density. You have to have dense matter to create strong gravity. No fluff, no air in the balloon kind of thing. It has to be full of water kind of thing. But I mean, they're just so aggressively wrong about what's possible. Now the other part I've tried to explain is as this is happening, this inverse square law, the reason that happens is because essentially like a light bulb, the further away you get, the amount of the spread of the photon spreads thinner and thinner and thinner. So see, there's 4 boxes inside this box, and then there would be 16 boxes inside this box. So that's 1 diameter away, and I'm already down to 16. And so if you thought about it as paint, you know, or darkness, this would be a shade of dark, and then this gets lighter, and then this gets lighter, barely any. And so if you thought of it as dots on the surface, you know, there'd be 10 dots on this surface, you could say. And you could say, well, yeah, it'd be really easy. And then there's only 10 dots on all of this surface. And then there's only 10 dots on all of this surface. So if you had a bucket, you were catching stuff as it popped off, you could sort of understand it. You're more likely to catch it where there's 10 dots coming out than where you're likely to only have a bucket big enough to catch 1. And that's the key thing here. The electron here is the same exact size that it is here. So if you thought of this as like a lawnmower, okay, and the gravity is going to be dependent on how much grass you can cut. You know, yeah, it's really easy to cut a big hunk of grass out of here. Let's say your thing was that size. And then this size is your path. And then this size is your path. You can see that in one path, you don't cut much of the grass here compared to how much of the grass you'll end up cutting here with just 1 swipe. And even if I gave you more swipes, you know, even if I gave you, all right, the ability to take another shot and even another shot, you're still going to be way short. Because gravity doesn't spread one way, it spreads both ways. So being in the gravity longer isn't going to help you, because yeah, that'll help you with the gravity going this way, spreading the way you're going, but it won't help you at all with the gravity that's spreading away from you horizontally, perpendicular, famous word on this channel. Gravity spreading away from you perpendicularly. It's not going to help you catch any of that. And you know, for these people to talk like this is just somehow common sense, when it's never been common sense that somehow you have the same amount of gravity 1 billion miles from the sun as you do right next to the sun. That's almost their logic. That somehow because you're in it longer, it's just as strong. Well, if that was true, then Pluto wouldn't have to be going insanely slow compared to Mercury. You know, planets could just go any speed and not fly out of their gravity. But clearly that's not the way it works. The gravity is much, much weaker out there. Alright, so that's probably, you know, there's ways to draw it. I mean, Holiday even drew it. He even had the diagram where you basically just get it. Okay, it's a, you know, it's a, you know, in the old conversation. Obviously, he's forgotten everything in this new argument about what he seemed to understand about, you know, the fact that this is a cone spreading. You can almost look at it too as like, if you did this diameter thing, you could just kind of understand it. If you have the sun here, and then you take you know, expand the radius to this bigger radius, it just kind of points out to you that you haven't made the sun bigger, and you've added a bunch of nothing. So you've basically made the sun many times less dense. You know, it's like you've added 3.5 nothings to the amount of something you had. And so now your mixture is much more diluted. How can you not understand this? So anyway, some idiot called Idiot Science, I just deleting comments by most assholes, but they don't even say as much as this idiot said. But he says, hey dumb fuck, if I put more mass into the sun, there will be more gravity. Well, No one's arguing against that, idiot. Is that too fucking hard to understand, you dumbass, with a question mark? So again, when was that the argument? Yes, if you put heavy elements into the sun and made it out of aluminum, it wouldn't have 80 meters per second gravity. It would have much, much higher. Yeah, true. If those galaxies are that far apart, you don't need a big angle to bend. So again, it's not about, you still need the angle to get to us, which is the only angle that really matters. And it doesn't matter what the angle is, you can't do the bending. We're not talking about how much angle. I mean, the angle between next to the sun and the diameter from the sun is not a significant difference. The argument is you can't get the job done in weak gravity, and that's what Einstein said. So go ahead and argue with Einstein on this one. Is that really fucking hard for your stupid shit-infested brain to understand? Unlike others, I do make the rational conclusion. So this is part of their faith and their argumentation that this is rational what they're doing to gravity and what they've done to Einstein's own words. And reach the idea that you really are just a petty, mentally defective idiot. Well, whatever, you call yourself idiot science, which is sort of demonstrates you really don't even get the idea of a proper satire or even a proper buffoonery, because you're just basically calling yourself an idiot. It's your name, idiot. You gave yourself the idiot name. Nobody else. So again, 9 thumbs up. And what he's going to say here is entirely incorrect. All of it. Every bit of it's just wrong. Let's see, put the volume back on. It's so bad. But really, this is the last lensing video. We've been there and done this. You have no argument. The only thing that saves your lensing images is dark matter, and I'll still insist that if you're going to put Einstein's name on something, you shouldn't be using dark matter and claiming Einstein validated your invisible man theory.
Is that he won't try to, you can tell, yeah, he still doesn't like to do any homework.
Okay, so again, this accusation that I haven't done my homework when he's the idiot who thinks single slits in water create diffraction patterns.
I mean, for example, with the lens, as Hythloday pointed out, he thinks...
Okay, so as Hythloday pointed out completely incorrectly, so yeah, I'll explain that one to you too, how you can't have lumpy gravity. Alright, I'll explain to you why you can't. I'll give you the real explanation of why you can't. So let's say you have these objects and they create lump gravity, because there's one here and one here, let's say, or some kind of other bullshit. Or it's just a physical Earth that has a little wiener on it. See, gravity is created, as I'm pointing out, by the thickness of the matter, you see. This is causing the gravity. So the more matter there is here, the more likely something moving this way will get the force moving through will get absorbed. The thinner it is, the less likely this gets absorbed. The thicker it is, the more likely it is it gets absorbed. And so technically the gravity at this point is higher than the gravity here, because that line is longer. See, this line going through the center. See, people don't even know what a center of gravity is. When you have to explain center of gravity, you know it's really getting infantile. So anyway, this gravity would be stronger. So what would happen is there'd be more chemical pressure pushing this down. So the gravity, because this can't move, the force is converted into chemical pressure, that is pressure on the atoms. So there'd be more pressure here than there would be here. And you know what's going to happen when that happens. If you put more pressure on a piece of, Play-Doh, your finger goes in. And so this is going to go down, and it's going to end up circular. That's why everything is round in the universe that has any mass at all. It's because it has to be. Because if it creates a lump, the lump ends up being more gravitational, heavier, and it falls into it easier. It has more pressure to push in. then the other stuff can resist. And so it's not really possible. So even in, this is like in charge relationships between charges. You can have two, different charges, and they'll create field lines, but the field lines will end up blending into each other, and very quickly it ends up being just a circle as you get to a certain distance. Everything just turns into a point source at a distance. All the rough edges disappear really quickly, and the only strong gravity is still going to be close to these objects. The only strong charge is close to the objects. And so, so this is just nonsense to have to argue. This is just so, they really don't do a good job on gravity in grammar school, but this is like what grammar school gravity conversations should be. And for these people to be so arrogant and be so wrong, just amazing.
Thinks that a lens is
we're talking about gravity, okay? So we're talking about gravitational lensing. It's a specific category of an event. It's not glass lenses, it's not soda bottles, it's what gravity does in the real universe. And gravity in the real universe is doing the spherical thing all over the place. That's all it's doing. I don't even think you could find non-spherical gravity someplace. It wouldn't be gravity, it wouldn't be strong gravity. Even if I had two suns, and they were the only two suns in the universe, and I got right in between the two suns, there'd be no gravity there. No gravity. None. Gravity doesn't add up, it subtracts, depending on where the objects are. So you can't just say, oh yeah, there's a lot of gravity here. No, you'd have to think about where you're going to locate. And if I was to pick a spot, okay, so if you people were to pick a spot where the strongest gravity would be, I guess you'd pick some spot like here, because it includes both things in it. No, the strongest gravity is still going to be close to one of these bodies, and where it's going to be the strongest is here and here. Those are going to be the points of the strongest gravity, but it's going to be incredibly weak gravity in the sense it's not going to be any stronger than going, if you go out anywhere, you're just going to get weaker and weaker. So the further out you go, the weaker the gravity gets. The strongest gravity is going to be right on the surface, not anywhere far out. The strongest even for traveling distance, right? So again, they keep thinking that because the circle is bigger and I'm in the gravity longer, right? So, here you have two circumstances. Let's say you're really close to a light bulb and you only get to open your bucket. You're catching photons. You open your bucket for 1 second. And then you move further away and you get to leave your bucket open for 5 seconds. By the laws of physics, you're always going to collect more photons here than you'll collect here. It's like if you wanted a seat at an explosion, right? Let's have an explosion at a stadium. So we're going to go to Yankee Stadium, we're going to just blow it up right from the middle. Where would you want to be sitting? In one of the box seats right next to the explosion, or far away from the explosion? And even if your seat was moving, like even if you moved your seat, the seats moved, spun. Let's say they just spun around the circle they were in. Which seat do you think is the seat you want to be sitting in? The one where you get the least shrapnel in your face? Well, guess what? It's going to be the one far out. The one close up is going to get lots and lots of damage. Even though it's spinning, it's traveling less distance. It isn't going to matter. So again, the inverse square law means it's spreading that way too. It's getting thinner in both directions.
I don't know, like a perfect lens, like he's thinking of an optical lens.
No, I'm thinking of a gravitational lens. Again, I'm arguing gravitational lensing. I'm pointing out how to have a big object show up, it means that the lens has to bend the light in a procession. So as it moves through the gravity, it has to increase at just the right amount to maintain the character of the image, even the ability to see the image. And the inverse square law lens is a very fish-eyed lens, and it won't even do that. It won't let you lens a big, thick area. Again, let's understand in gravitational lensing, some people probably don't know this, the idea is that wherever you see a blob, like this is lensing, okay? This is the size of the lens. The lens always has to be drawn to that understanding that the object is being seen through the lens. You're seeing a fake image of something. The real image is here. Okay? And because it's getting bent, you're seeing it over there, but you're seeing through the lens. So it has to be in that position where the gravity is. The gravity has to be where you see the object. The gravity can't be here and create the object here. You have to see the object where the gravity is. I've been over all this.
You know, Hathaway tried to point out with the water.
Okay, Hathaway tried to point out, again, it's wrong. So again, to be this arrogant, in spite of the fact that he's probably seen me make a video to Hathaway's statement and pointed out why it's fundamentally wrong. And then I made another video going through the whole thing. And he posted this video. And it's wrong. 9 thumbs up for completely wrong science. You're not even close to the truth, completely opposite to the truth. And you people are rewarding it. It's not even pseudoscience. It's not even saying, you know, it's not even saying something different. It's saying something stupid. It's not even some kind of like, oh, I have a new theory. No, he can't even accurately describe the theory he believes in. He can't even quote his own Bible accurately. That's what a nutter he is. That's what a nutter all you people are. You don't even know the physics you're defending. I'm not arguing my physics. I'm arguing real physics, Einstein's physics. Here I am sitting here defending real physics against you, the real physics you claim to believe in. I'm quoting your own Bible at you and you still don't recognize it. It's your own fucking Bible.
Bottle. It's like, no, we're talking about lensing, not good lenses that you use in a lab.
So again, the point is, it happens that the universe does create good lenses. Yes, they're not the kind you can use for, like I said, image optics in the sense that they're too thick. But they're very good lenses in the sense that they have symmetry. All right, so they're arguing that they're not symmetrical lenses. No, the universe creates very symmetrical lenses, just like water droplets create very symmetrical lenses. They're just not very good lenses sometimes for viewing things through.
Well, like if I just made a blob of crystalline glass and I didn't shape it into anything, it was just a blob.
So again, so that's how much he understands gravity, like I just said. Gravity won't do that unless it's very, very weak gravity, like 2 rocks bang into each other really slowly, and they just kind of sit on top of each other, and there's not enough gravity to crush the rocks, and so they stay lumpy. But we know we're not talking about lensing around asteroids. I mean, maybe he thinks that's possible, but no, we're talking about lensing in a realistic sense about what kind of object that can produce lensing. If it was this easy, we could just look next to Jupiter or something. It's not that bright. Right next to Jupiter, it's pretty dark space, and there's no corona. So if lensing was that easy, we could just do it there. Dumbass.
Through it, it'd be lensed. That's pretty simple.
Okay, that's pretty simple. That's completely wrong.
Gravity can Einstein did predict this, the lensing of...
Okay, so this is part of the lying, right? I mean, he sits there and keeps accusing people of things, and you keep saying, you know, you're not allowed to call anybody like you're denying our experiments or you're doing this when they're correcting you. All right? Einstein didn't say anything about galactic lensing being possible. He didn't talk about anything being lensing objects far away from the sun because you're in the sun's gravity for a longer period of time. No such speculation by Einstein. None. Everything he said about lensing was right near the surface of the object that was going to provide you the opportunity for lensing. And the reason why I thought you'd probably never see it is because, yes, you'd have to see it right next to some body that's on fire. And it's really hard to see things next to things that are really, really bright. Fuck.
Light, obviously.
So he says,
and
obviously.
After that, it's just a matter of optics. How much?
See? Oh, after that, it's just a matter of optics. No, you haven't gotten to a truth. You haven't even gotten to your optics. And again, the point would be, let's say there was lensing in these preposterous places you claim it to be. So it's way out here and it's lensing from the gravitational object. The argument still remains that if that was true, there would be super powerful gravity here. And how come there's no lensing taking place here? Because this stronger gravity can lens from a lot more angles. See, this can only lens from a very specific angle. But everything, the cone of this stronger lens is a much wider cone. It can lens anything in that much wider cone.
Where's the focal point?
Focal point.
Galaxy is the.
It's not about focal points either. I mean, we're at this moment we're talking about Einstein rings, which are a very special circumstance. But lensing as just a blob in a place, you know, just any old blob on any circular circumference, like that would be lensing, a little blip here. You know, here's this galaxy, and then we see this fake one here that's really in this other location, and we're seeing it here, you know, kind of thing. Those lenses could happen with almost in stuff located in almost any position. Yet we don't see it. In all these places you say there's sufficient gravity to create the phenomenon. It doesn't exist. The absence of evidence is evidence. When something doesn't exist, and it should, that's just as powerful a piece of evidence as the stuff that is there and it should.
Gravity, you might call it weak, but there's a lot of math.
You might want to call it weak. So I'm making up some idiotic notion that the inverse square law means gravity drops off dramatically. And as I just pointed out, just one solar diameter, just one diameter of the sun away from the sun, and the gravity is already half the gravity on Earth. Half.
It's in there. It does have a gravity, and
it does have a gravity, and that all it needs is any gravity will do. So we can just have a dust speck in space. That's enough gravity, because we don't care about any of this math, physics stuff, proportions. Any gravity will do.
They're really long. I mean, our galaxy isn't even that big, and it's like, I don't know, 100 to 200,000 light years across. So
200,000 light years across. I'm not sure it's that big. That's the rest of the universe just got really small, if that's true, right? 200,000 light years would make the galaxy. I mean, I'm just going by a billion light years, right? 200,000 would be 1 million. So that would be 1,000 of a billionth. 1,000th of a billionth. So the whole universe would only be like 10,000 galaxies across. Well, maybe. Anyway, I don't want to bother with that. Look, all right, back. We'll just do the galaxy thing one more time. This is really not that complicated. It has nothing to do with how big the galaxy is, right? So we've got two galaxies here. They have the same exact density. Okay, the density of material is pretty much the same in both the galaxies. So when you're lensing, okay, some distance from this galaxy, and again, as I pointed out, this is the shortest distance right? See how thin this galaxy is? I mean, this is the distance. This is the time you're going to be in the gravity. And see, they're making this dopey argument that the further away you go, which is even more ironic when you think of that they have the galaxy pointed the wrong direction. So just understand, the galaxy is thin. So the gravity, plane of gravity is this way, is strong, but this way it's not so much. Okay? So, so they're saying that, okay, well, if I'm way out here and I stay in the gravity longer, that's just as good as this little line here, really close. And it's exactly the opposite is the truth. This is hundreds of times more likely to get you moved than this. Get you the light bent, such a thing were possible. You know, by my theory, light doesn't bend. It has to hit an electron and get a new vector. It's always diffracted. Well, it's always deflected, whatever word I'm allowed to use. But the irony is if you think about the gravity equation and distance, if you had the galaxy pointed this way, the middle is a little bit bigger, the amount of time you spend in the gravity is much longer than this line. You can sort of see that, right? So you'd end up in gravity for a longer period of time. And here in the middle would be very strong gravity because you're very close to the heavy stuff in the middle. Where here you're always far away from the heavy stuff in the middle. You're only close to this little fringy stuff. So why don't we have lensing images where around galaxies, there's pictures of galaxies that are this shape on end to us. And we never see lensing images around those galaxies. It's always the galaxy this way, never the galaxy this way. So every lensing image is always this way, never this way. And by physics, this way should do more lensing. So anyway, but the density argument, I'll just do it, the very fact that we have spiral arms in empty space. So there's all this empty space, and they're just ignoring it. Like that doesn't reduce the density of the stars. Like you have star, which is a box of hard matter. Okay, it's not very hard because it's just hydrogen. And you mix it with a box of empty space. So you have a box of dense, and you mix it with a box of nothing, empty space. You don't understand how that gives you a box that's, weaker, not as dark. That it dilutes the gravity. You don't understand how the empty space dilutes the effect of the gravity.
It has thousands of light years. There's galaxies a million light years across. And so it has millions of years as the light passes to get bent. So it doesn't take very much per...
So again, it's just a silly notion. And I'll go back to the cutting grass analogy. I thought I drew that somewhere here. So anyway, yeah, so this is your turf to have to cut. And this is just one diameter away. So just understand that the field didn't get just a little bit bigger where he's talking about. It is absolutely huge. Millions of acres. And all he's cutting is one tiny little piece. And that's all he has a hope for. He's missing all of this gravity. We'll never go anywhere near him. He'll never touch it. He'll never pick up all of those pieces of ink. He just gets the ink that's in this little path, and it's going to be a tiny amount of ink, and it'll never bend light.
Second, for it to get bent a lot, if you're far enough.
See, so if you're far enough away, this is exactly the opposite of how gravity works, right? If you're far enough away and traveling slowly enough, that doesn't get you pulled into something. That's not going to make you fall in faster or more likely. That's not going to make it so you won't escape gravity. None of those things will help you in this circumstance. There's no way to have more lensing the further away you go. You can't make it happen.
Away. That's just common logic.
You heard him say it, right? It's common logic to think there's more gravity further away. That you're going to encounter more gravity the further away you go. Because you're in it longer. And it doesn't matter that the gravity's moving both dimensions bigger by the inverse square law. Fuck the inverse square law. That's Newton's science. See, he's rejecting Newton in every way. He's just saying, fuck the inverse square law.
And he seems to think that his description of why he doesn't buy lensing images, he's called that a mathematical argument.
I pointed out to you that Einstein's math doesn't make it possible, so you shouldn't be putting Einstein's name on it. And if you're going to say it's a dark matter ring, then call it that. Call it dark matter rings. Because they're not Einstein rings. Because Einstein never said there was invisible matter, okay, that made rings. I mean, you're just making shit up. And so the very fact that you think that's okay, that it's okay to so distort what Einstein predicted into something so very different from what Einstein predicted. Not even part of Einstein's imagination in any way whatsoever. And yet you're going to claim we verified Einstein with something that has nothing to do with what Einstein predicted. And you don't see that you're a fraud and a liar for doing that?
Like, oh, the math does work out.
Okay, so he just said it. No, it doesn't. You want to bet $1 million? There's no way you can take Einstein's equations that are dependent on the fact that Einstein knew what the inverse square law was, and he knew that gravity is getting wider in 2 dimensions, and your traveler can only lengthen the distance in 1 dimension. So he's never going to be able to capture gravity that's getting away from him in the way he's not going. There's no chance.
Right?
Wrong.
Gravity does add up.
Gravity does add up. So here we go. So I can put 3 things way over here and way over here and way over here, and I can draw a circle around them, and these gravities all add up, and I just won't pay any attention to all this space here. So I won't pay any attention to the fact that 1 solar diameter away from this object, it's already lost 90% of its gravity. And I'll just say that, no, I'll just add up these bodies and I'll pretend their gravity is here. When, no, their gravity is here, is incredibly weak. It's like almost non-existent. It's so weak.
It doesn't matter if it makes you drop like a feather. It's still there. Or if you drop like a little...
Again, see? So it's still there. So the inverse square law doesn't matter. Gravity just stays as strong no matter how... I can take a feather all the way to the end of the solar system, beyond Pluto, and it doesn't matter how much velocity I give it, what I get, it's still going to fall just like a feather on Earth or something. I mean, it just... What is that nonsense? No, the rules change as you get further away. Substantially change.
Piece of lint, there's no atmosphere, you're slowly getting pulled, and that goes for the light.
Number one, I don't think it goes for the light anyway, this whole pulling thing. See? Pull gravity. Half a day. Pulled how? By what mechanism? No, the geometry. Yeah, right. See, this is what's so wrong when you take the force element out of it. See, if you thought of this as from my perspective, my theory, you would understand right away why one of the fundamental problems is as soon as I take 2 bodies and I move them further apart from each other, it's going to be obvious that all this extra energy gets in now. So this object gets hit by all the field energy from both sides again. And it's only a tiny percentage of the field energy that doesn't get to this one now. It's a tiny shadow. The shadow gets weaker and weaker and weaker the further away you get. And you can see that right before your eyes, how as I move the 2 objects, say there's a light on this side and a light on this side, it's evenly lit. and I have two things really close and they're casting shadows, and as soon as I get a little bit away, all of a sudden the shadows are just going to start disappearing. They're going to get so weak and weaker and weaker. So I mean, if they understand this is a real force, then it would really be easy to understand how wrong this really bad science he's spouting is. Like I said, it's worse than some idiot who thinks they have some new theory. He can't even recite the established theory correctly.
Now, why does the Einstein cross have those 4 images of a star? Well, first of all, we know it's the same star, not 4 different stars, because the light fingerprint, the spectra of those 4 images is exactly the same.
Right. So, see, we know that because of this. And, you know, without even thinking, you can figure out that, oh, you mean, so if one planet broke into 4 pieces, that couldn't possibly, I mean, one star, one sun broke into 4 pieces, that couldn't explain it. Or if they arose in the same universal conditions, and they were all made of basically the same materials, that wouldn't explain it either. Yeah, of course they have the same signature. They're 4 things in opposite orbits to each other. So why wouldn't you think those 4 things? I mean, you have binary systems, and really, so it's a quaternary system. So it's 2 binary systems that are connected to each other. You know, they got merged, but there'd be every expectation that they had to do that merger. Okay, as pointed out before, you can't just get into orbit with something. The orbit has to be formed that way. So the only way they could be in this arrangement, the only way two binary systems really can't combine into this. So the only way that could happen was it had to be born that way, like twins. This is triplets or quadruplets. It had to be born that way. So of course they're made of the same stuff. Wow. But he says that's impossible. We already proved that they have to be lensed images of the same object. They couldn't have been formed at the same time. They couldn't be formed in the same system. No. They have to be one object, okay, that is being lensed 4 times without any Einstein ring for no explained reason. He still doesn't explain how that's possible. The same math, and yet 2 fundamentally different products. In one circumstance, it creates a perfect image of a spherical body. Okay, perfectly, you know, not perfect. They're really not very proportional, actually. But regardless, they're round images. And in the other circumstance, it's a big blob of rain. And it all kind of swirled. Same exact math. Why the 2 differences? The location of the objects has to be exactly the same, or it wouldn't have done the lensing. So we know the place where the object is the same. So why is the image being distorted differently in the 2 circumstances? No explanation will be provided.
And that's like a fingerprint. And the reason it's not a ring is, well, the parts of what you would think the ring is distorted. It doesn't have to make a perfectly circular ring.
Okay, so it doesn't have to make a perfectly circular ring. That doesn't explain why the objects are being perfectly resolved in the one circumstance and the objects aren't being resolved in the other circumstance. You're not explaining anything.
Oddly shaped. So the galaxy that's lending that Einstein cross, that's very elongated. And if you do the math of this elongated, weird shape...
You can't. So that's another thing where he just blew up his own theory, right? I mean, it was already rubbish, as stated. But clearly, the last hope you have of doing lensing is having a non-symmetrical gravity field. Then you have no chance of doing Einstein's ring. So if this is non-symmetrical, there's no chance of Einstein's ring, because you need exactly the same amount of gravity in every single one of these locations. Exactly the same. No chance for anything elongated. If you can see that it's not even a perfect circle almost, then you're automatically out Einstein ring hope. So really, for Einstein ring, you need solar masses, because they're always very spherical, or black holes. But even galaxies are likely to get you into trouble. So you need a real good circular spiral galaxy to have any even theoretical hope of creating an Einstein ring. So you clearly don't understand any of this physics at all.
Shaped lens. Remember, it's not a lens made for use in a lab with a perfectly, parabolic.
No one's arguing for perfect, but the point is it can't be oblong. It can't be the things you're claiming it to be and create the effect, because there's no symmetry, and there has to be symmetry.
Or spherical or flat surface, it's just made randomly by nature, like a random piece of lava glass, and the light would bend.
Okay, so he thinks that galactic objects and universal objects are created like blobs of glass in Earth's atmosphere. You know, if you made the blobs of glass in space without the atmosphere, you know they're going to come out round, don't you? Yeah, you know that, don't you, idiot?
Through it. Or on and on. Here's another thing where you could do a little homework. Beam splitters.
Okay, I need to do the homework. Now, he just recited, 3 minutes and 30 seconds of absolute rubbish. Not one fact. All of it just completely backwards to the truth. The exact opposite of the truth, defended as the truth.
When you shoot light at a piece of glass at an angle, some of it bounces off.
Yeah, I did videos on Newton's glass, in terms of the thin layers of glass. And see, you can't even get this one right, because you can make glass that has all kinds of different reflective indexes by just polishing it. So you can almost get to 0, actually, and then you can get as high as 16% of the light reflecting. But you can make glass that's almost non-reflective just by polishing it to the right thickness.
Why, in a mirror you can see a reflection of the outside world. You're outside not a mirror. You're a window. You're outside the house. You're looking in the house. You can see in the house, but you also see reflected images from outside on the glass. No coating.
Right. And if I just polish that thickness of the glass, see, it recycles 16% to 0%, 16, 0, 16, 0. So all I have to do is take a little bit of glass off, and I can polish it down to 0. No reflection.
Necessary. If you aim a laser at a block of crystal glass, at 45 degrees incident, some of it's going to bounce off, some of it's going to go through. No coating. They do make beam splitters with coating, like for...
So again, what does this have to do with the fact that the beam splitter diffracts the light, because it's a diffraction gradient? So again, it's just totally ignoring the point made. I don't think there's much point in me pointing it out again, but the idea of the beam splitter is half the light reflects and half the light goes through, because it's a half silver mirror. And the half silver mirror is just basically a bunch of slits going in all kinds of different directions. And so what happens is the one that goes through is basically going through the two slit thing. It's doing the diffraction thing. And the one that reflects is perfectly the same as it was when it went in. It doesn't get distorted. So the light that goes through gets diffracted. The light that reflects does not get reflected. And then when they put the beam back together again, exactly the opposite happens. The diffracted beam that's now traveled, say, 18 meters and is spreading the whole time. And then this last beam gets to go through and just get diffracted a little tiny bit. So one beam has been diffracted for 18 meters, and one beam has only been diffracted for 6 inches. And then they claim okay, that those are the same beams of light, when clearly they're not.
Laser light shows and stuff.
and stuff. I mean, he talks a lot like a 13-year-old.
These laser experiments are not done with beam splitters, with coatings.
Nobody's talking about coatings.
A lens is just about lensing. You know, he thinks diffraction is synonymous with bending.
I think the fact that you're claiming all words are something to be defined by Piro, fine, okay. I just won't use any of the words anymore, if that's the rules. Piro gets to tell us what the words mean. All the words, reflection, deflection, refraction, diffraction, in my opinion, all of them have to do with something hitting something and angularly changing its direction. There's no such thing as a bending ever. Light doesn't bend. Idiots.
You're kind of quote-unquote bending.
Yeah, quote-unquote bending.
But lensing is a general term for bending. If you have parallel incoming rays of any sort, BBs, whatever, and you have something.
So he's taking a word, generic, lensing, which is a description of what a lens does, which is change the direction of the light. And he's going to say, well, that's the same as when you trip on a rock, that you just got lensed. I mean, it's a silly, totally unnecessary.
That's lensing. If you had a little divot in your bowling alley lane, it caused the bowling ball to curve when it went through it because it's a divot. That would have a lensing effect.
See, then you just end up combining different subjects, because that would be more like scatter. Scatter would be more described as some kind of impediment. So there was sand on the bowling alley, and the sand deflects the bowling ball. Yeah, that's like scatter. So just mess up this terminology altogether. The middle part here, he just does a bunch of raggy philosophy, more of his psychobabble, a psychology argument, the argument from silly psychology. So I don't know if that's worth wasting any time on.
You can't
52.
claim that your theory
We're
is in
done
accordance with the evidence when in reality you deny that the evidence exists. You're saying all this evidence doesn't exist.
Okay, so he's saying I'm saying the photos of the images don't exist. When that's never anything I said. I said it seems kind of obvious to me that these lensing images are actually the rings left from explosions, and that's why there's so much distortion. Something exploded near a galaxy, and the galaxy got spread out by the explosion, something like that. But it's not an optical effect. You're actually looking at something, that's the shape of it now. As it got exploded.
So you can't go with your theory, but it conforms and explains everything just as it is. No, it explains the world different from the evidence we claim it.
Okay, so I keep saying it's a different than, and so the only thing different is my theory doesn't embrace their weak evidence. So all the stuff that's weakly evidenced, like spooky action in a distance or something, they claim that to be facts, and they claim I'm denying the evidence because they claim that evidence is facts. I'm saying I don't deny you did an experiment. What I deny is what you concluded based on the results of that experiment, especially based on the fact that you don't seem to even understand how your own experiment works, in that I've never heard anybody explain how a beam splitter is creating two equal beams of light when one of them is diffracted through the whole path and the other one isn't. That's not equal. They can't even get the simple elements right. As I pointed out with polarization, I pointed out the flaws in these bizarre fringe experiments. And again, they're claiming the fringe experiments are some foundational experiment. They're claiming the two-slit experiment is like foundational, rock-solid proof when it's a weak evidenced experiment. And they should try, and so I'm only worrying about matching the strong evidence, not the weak evidence. And certainly I don't mind matching the evidence. I don't have any problem with the images in the galaxy. I have a problem with their conclusion of what those images are produced by. Alright, well, we're almost out of time, so we'll just leave it there. I don't think, well, I might as well play it till the camera gives out. Just be warned, it'll cut off.
Well, we're liars. Those experiments were never done. That's false claim.
Okay, so he keeps saying things like that. I said that about one experiment. The experiment that's never done is the one in the Dr. Quantum video where they claim they turned the detectors off. No, they didn't turn them off. They left the detectors on but didn't look at the data. And by not looking at the data, the photons behave differently. I said that experiment was never done because it's silly. And yes, it couldn't be done because it wouldn't work. It wouldn't happen. So it's rubbish and nonsense. And yet it's one of the highest viewed physics videos on YouTube. And that doesn't bother any of your scientists. None of you care. Like I said, it's like putting dinosaurs in the Bible. I could just write dinosaurs into the Bible, apparently, and you'd be the kind of Christian that says, cool, good, dinosaurs are in there. I feel better about the Bible now because it has dinosaurs in it. That's how much you give a shit, clearly, about the truth.
Hey. Well, okay, then you're saying there is no evidence, so you need to go...
So again, I'm saying there's no evidence. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's no evidence for drawing conclusions. There's curious things. And the curious things you say, whoa, we ought to figure out what's doing that. And what you don't do is say, well, let's just let the invisible man fix it. I got a bottle of invisible man. We'll just dark matter in there, pour a little dark matter, everything's fixed. Why not go with conclusions? Because we have the instant fix. Invisible man to the rescue.
Get your own evidence all the more so.
Now, create my own evidence. Where did I do that? Where did I create my own evidence? Where did I do something other than pay attention to like Maxwell's equations, energy fields, all that stuff? Where have I demonstrated any effort to not pay attention to what is the observed and reliable phenomenon in physics?
Scientific system that is just a philosophy of science that explains what I think, what we've seen.
Gee, who cares? Right? Do I care what his philosophy of science is? No, I don't think I do. So we'll jump. This is where it just gets nonsensical rubbish about his... I have a personal fantasy belief about certain things. I mean, there's no details. So there's some details, we laugh at them, but there's no details, so it's absolutely useless.
Be insulting when you're saying that we've been lying about our primary, the most fundamental experiments.
Okay.
That.
All right. So I haven't done that. So that's a lie. So he's the one lying about what I've said. What I've said is they're describing the experiment inaccurately, because it's all part of the faith, and they've never really looked at it or picked at it because they all believe it, and they're not going to scrutinize it. They don't read your own Bible. And so I'm just saying it's not my fault that the two-slit math didn't have the width of the slits in it. You know, I didn't create the problem. I didn't create the fact that, yes, diffraction gradients diffract light, and that's what a beam splitter is. I didn't invent that problem. It's a problem that exists in your physics, and you just don't want to pay any attention. And I certainly didn't create the problem that your galactic lenses are far too big, okay, and too thick, and in the wrong places. I didn't create the problem. You just don't care to fix it.
Show us there's something going on here that needs explaining.
Yeah, you don't explain. You just pull out your bottle of bullshit. Your magic force did it. The magic force did it. The virtual photon did it. The dark matter did it. The bent geometry did it. You just create some fake, non-existent thing to describe why something happens, and then call yourself physicist when there's nothing physical in your fucking theory. Shit. Photons have radar. Photons split in 15. They create extra wavelets, and you just make up crap. that there's absolutely no physical evidence for.
But it's very convenient for confidence to say, but it's all going to work out. It's going to conform to the experiments.
I'm not saying it's going to. It already does. So again, another bullshit argument. Why don't you point out how it doesn't? Point out some circumstance in the real physics that I haven't met, that my particle theory can't overcome the facts.
Because it's right. But he says it conforms to the experiments that have been done, but he says those are all a bunch of lies.
There he goes. And that's just a lie. So again, when you lie about calling somebody a liar with a lie, I mean, you can't get much lower than that. Again, let's just study in how to be wrong as possible and not know it. So you think you can just lie about somebody lying, and that doesn't make you, like, worse than a liar? It's just like double lying?
It's a great example of how if you're emotionally
psychobabble,
irate, that's going to affect your intellectual emotions, and they're not going to work so well because
yeah, whatever. They're intellectual emotions. Again, that's your concept, silly person. That's a dildo you have up your ass. Everybody isn't born with one of those in their ass. I guess the end is just playing with the dog, I guess. Yeah, nothing there.
And you just end up being incredibly desperate. I mean,
right, okay. So I'd say it's incredibly desperate when you drug up that silly diffracted wave video to sit there and somehow say, look, single slits in water waves do create interference patterns. Yeah, no, they don't. Alright, so enough. But I'm just saying this just verifies more aggressive accusations than I've made about how these people are all hypocrites, phonies, fakes, frauds. Not one thumb down for this horribly bad science, and not one statement by any of these cronies. Okay, cool. Great vid. Great vid for what? What fact was in that video? What did he get right? Okay, science denier. Stupid sausage for mash asshole. Which I don't even know what that means, but it's probably has something to do with a dildo up your ass. And this one, some sort of gay love. Yeah, that's a relevant comment. So in quote, okay, well, good. See, Piro shows his true colors often in the comments. So he's laughing at some stupid, idiotic comment, but he says, Nietzsche said, so it's again another Nietzscheism. See, that's his Bible, really. He doesn't give a shit about physics. He likes Nietzsche. Said, in the end, all great minds become obsessed with the mysteries of the common man. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Not. Let's see. I think we can cure our mental illness, and I'm affected by my view, the disease of terminal optimism. Well, there you go. You're totally unrealistic. You can't conform to facts. You can't recognize them. You can't accept them. You just admitted it. So why play this game that you're doing something called physics? And why should people support you in that effort to turn physics into a lie? You can't even read your own Bible right. I mean, it's pretty disgraceful to be such a zealot and you haven't even read your own Bible.